Hi, Misha here.
Hi, this is Jake.
And it's time for June's Patreon Q&A.
Yeah, we figured on nearly the last day of June here, we would go ahead and do our June Q&A.
Yep. So we have enough questions. I think it'll keep it interesting. And I think this is going to be a pretty AK heavy question list. So why don't we just get right into it. And by the way, if anyone donates to our Patreon, you're welcome to post as many questions. When we usually give 2 to 4 weeks on Patreon to put it up, and then we do our best when we have a weekend to give you some answer. Yep. Not necessarily the right answer, but an answer.
Right. All right, ready to get started?
Let's go.
Alrighty, first question. Gear. It used to be that Chinese AKs were garbage AKs and the Wasser 10 was a poorly made import. I think he's referring to the perception there. Now both are in high demand. What do you think will be the next shift in perspective for the U.S. AK market?
I mean, barring unforeseen circumstances, nothing, because I think for one thing, what helped the Chinese was getting sanctioned. Anytime you sanction something, people can't have it anymore, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So that's easy on the choice. The Wasser, I think it's just endurance. So many are out there, it's an import. Despite people kind of whining and groaning about canted or this, you don't ever hear of catastrophic failures or really even horrible accuracy. All the issues are essentially cosmetic nitpicks, and I think the majority of people are smart enough to realize, wait, it's an AK.
Yeah. I think where we start to see the Wasser reputation change was in 2012, whenever they kind of dried up, and it seemed like they were, $500, $600, and when they came back, they were like 800 plus, but there for a while, people were having a hard time getting them. And it seemed to me like that, like you were saying earlier, it seemed to me like it was the import drying up or being between import cycles. People have
just realizing that imports aren't made down the street at Joe's factory. They're made overseas, and anything can happen to goof that.
And it seemed like then it's when the reputation to them started getting to be out of control, really, on the Wassers.
And to be fair, Century and Cougar did kind of improve cosmetic issues. I'm not going to say mechanical, because I think the Wasser, the SAR was always good, but they did kind of start to ship them with a little better park, a little paying a little more attention, so at least you felt like you got a little something for the price jump.
Yeah. So do you think that there is going to be a shift in perspective for the US AK market?
Not really. Okay, I think the only thing that would really help the US AK market, there's 2 potential ways. If it came up with something that's never been imported, like the AK-107, or in the case of like the KR9 we saw, that we don't have a Vitiaz, so I think there's room. But I think otherwise only if all imports are banned. And I think if that happens, whatever prohibited those imports would probably also impact the American market.
Yeah, I could see that. And you'll
Kinda
probably
like the
have some people
ban.
will come out. Some companies will come out as the winner as far as what the hive mind likes and doesn't like and all that.
And just to know, just because you're on top today, that hive mind can change on a dime.
Yep.
So.
For sure.
No, I really don't see it. I think with the allure to the AK, there's always that original. It's like, even if we could get Chinese or Russian ARs, wouldn't you still rather have a Colt or even a Ruger, Smith & Wesson? I mean, this is where the air is from.
Yeah. Joshua asks, do you have any interest in NFA items, suppressors, SBRs, etc.?
That's the one we forgot to put on the table.
That's the notable one that's not out here.
Yeah. Not really my only interest. I do like SBRs. I do have a couple of suppressors, but for the most part, I find that full autos today are just super duper overpriced. And I really, if you look at inflation, they're pretty stagnant. Yeah. I think you're better off buying, for the same money, a crate of Wassers or a crate of Makarovs, and then I just don't see today in 2019 getting into full autos is a great investment.
I mean, we both have had trigger time with full autos, and as cool as they are, as fun as they are, I don't feel too much of a loss by not having one in the collection personally. I mean, chances are most of the time you're going to be shooting semi-auto anyway. You know, as far as range use,
you still got to pay for the ammo.
And you still have to pay for the ammo. So.
And you know what? If you have full autos, you always have friends when it comes time to shoot them. But when it comes time to clean or pay for the ammo, yeah.
The one thing I wish, suppressors for sure. Because typically where our test range is, there's neighbors nearby and stuff, and it would be nice to be able to go out and shoot without bothering anybody. But it's a thing that to me is ridiculous that they're restricted. But
I would say SBRs too, just because
SBRs too. Yeah, the whole pistol brace thing has made that such an asinine ruling. But
so if we're talking in FA, we're more interested in stuff that's still technically legal to get.
Robert says, I have an Arsenal SAM-7 Bulgarian milled and a Chinese SKS, and would like to know the best way to lubricate, oil, or grease both.
Really, especially the AK, and being a milled, there's not much. Do not put any oil or grease near the gas tube or gas block. If you have to, you can oil or grease the receiver rails and the corresponding cutouts in the bolt carrier. That's really it though. AKs really don't need a lot, and to be fair, those Arsenals, they have a paint finish anyway, so grease it's just gonna sit there. It's not gonna soak in like it normally would on something else. As far as SKSs, they do require a little more. For one thing, they're blued, so you want to make sure the outside stays oiled. And from that, I would also, not so much an oiling thing, but make sure your firing pin channel is clean, because it floats. So that'd be my main concern with an SKS, is making sure my firing pin wasn't sticking.
For me, general lubrication, especially on a gun that's just out of the box, is receiver rails. I put a little bit on the contact surfaces for the trigger to smooth the trigger out, and basically I'll dry wipe the piston after shooting. Sometimes I use a solvent on it and just make sure it's clean and dried off before I put it back together, and then an oil swab through the barrel before I put it back in storage, and then a light coat of oil on the outside, just an oily rag wipe down the outside. Yeah,
I don't go too crazy. Of course, we don't keep our guns in deep store. We visit our guns relatively periodically, and I've always found that a good dehumidifier is better than gallons of oil.
Cav Scout says, any update on the Polish MSBS, particularly on the U.S. civilian market?
The Grot or Gwot, whatever it is now. No. It's of course that was all part of Radom USA. Arms of America, Atlantic have never said they're doing an MSBS. I think they'd like to, but they know that's something that FB's just now maybe sort of making for the Polish military. So I'm sure if they had time to make some for civilians over here that would comply with ATF rules, that's way down the line. So honestly, the only update is not in the foreseeable future.
Truck Fighter says, PSA AKP versus Romanian import Draco FS versus Zastava NPAP versus Polish Lynx only pistol AKs.
Versus in what way?
I guess comparison.
Yeah, I would say the smoothest is probably the Lynx and all that.
I agree.
I do kind of like the look, the crink look of the Yugo. So for looks, I'd say Yugo. For actual smoothness, the Lynx.
Polish. It's kind of hard to describe. You almost have to get hands on, but the Lynx is considerably smoother, has better fit and finish. It almost feels like a milled gun compared to the NPAP or the Draco. Functionality, they're going to all be about the same. I can't really comment on the PSA because I don't have any hands-on experience with it, because the Draco, the NPAP, and the Lynx are all available.
And not really significantly any more money, especially the Yugos. They were quite affordable.
Yep. But that's kind of where I would put the Polish probably top. I would say NPAP and then Draco if it were me, having actually owned all three.
Yeah, the Draco, it's not a bad gun. I like Romanian, but the thing about it is, it's a 12.5-inch barrel without anything on the end. So if you put even a small suppressor, you're nearly 14 inches.
Yeah.
It's not that short, and it's not that light.
Yep.
At least the Lynx has a 10-inch barrel, as does the Yugo.
Yeah, the Yugo's a neat package. Underappreciated gun, I would say, for your time. Angel says, I have a fully converted Izhmash AK-47 and did not notice it has a stepped barrel. I think he means chamber on this.
I think so, yeah, after reading it. I think so.
After reading several forums, it has a mixed review about the deformed casings. While I have problems in the future, do all Izhmash rifles have this? I will go ahead and read Darren's comment and reply back to it. Yeah. I have 4 converted 7.62 by 39 Saigas, and only one of them has a step chamber. There you go. I have had no problems whatsoever with this rifle, and I'm over 10,000 rounds now. It's actually my favorite 7.62 by 39 to shoot, and it's still very, very reliable and accurate.
Yeah, the only problems you might have is with reloading, which 7.62 39 you're probably not doing because it's steel case anyway. But you know, the whole reason they put the ring in the chamber in Russia was for police identifying a civilian gun, and they've been using them over there since the mid 90s. So no, it won't impact anything, and unless you're a reloader, it absolutely shouldn't matter.
Rotbot. I recently purchased a 308 chambered NDM 86 with the full set of accessories included by Norinco. It is still sealed in the plastic bag it was shipped in. I purchased the rifle as an investment/collector piece. Would it be better for the rifle's value to leave it in the plastic, or should it be opened up to be cleaned, oiled for the preservation of the wooden metal? Thanks for your time, Misha and Jay. Keep up the fantastic content.
Well, it depends. Do you want a nice condition gun, not in a bag, or do you want a gun that has rusted and is in a bag? And it's funny, you know, I do models and stuff, and sometimes that bleeds over into other things. And finally, anyone, you know, the little short G.I. Joes, the ones from the 80s?
Yep.
You know, they have a rubber O-ring in them.
Yep.
And there's a huge debate in that community. Oh, leave them on card. But then that O-ring rots away, so it might be on card, but your little guy is falling apart in the package. Or do you open it up and replace with the O-rings really easy to replace and have an intact figure? And so it's kind of the same thing. The thing is, look, that oil or grease, whatever it might have been given, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's dried up or evaporated or gone. I know it's in a bag, but still, yeah, 30 years is a long time. There's nothing protecting that gun.
Yeah, and actually, if there were any moisture in it when it was sealed up, or has any moisture gotten into it since it was sealed up, then it's just going to stay trapped in there.
Yeah, because all it takes is a couple of pinprick holes over 30 years, and it's going to get in and, no, get that thing out ASAP. Besides, what's the point of owning a gun? I mean, obviously, if it's in a bag, you're not enjoying it. You're not obviously shooting it. You're not racking the bolt. You're not looking at it. Why own it? Life's too short.
Yeah. Yeah, since it's purely, I mean, for me, since it's purely being purchased for a collector, as a collector, for an investment type thing, yeah, for sure, I'd open it up. I mean, you hear about the infields and stuff that are, that people find, you know, that's in the closet that was shipped over and it's still all wrapped up in the paper shipping with the, I mean, I think the first thing people do on those is strip that paper off and
those have been dipped in Cosmoline too.
Yeah.
I mean, and your NDM, it hasn't been.
Yeah.
It's not. It was oil, but it wasn't Cosmoed. So get that thing, because that blued finish rusts relatively.
The blued does.
It's not parked. So yeah, you need to get it out. So, I mean, just what you do, if you really very neatly with the razor cut the end of the bag on the seam, you could always use a heat gun to reseal it if you just must.
I just throw it I'd throw the thing in the box, I'd throw the bag back in the box, make sure that your gun has plenty of air moving around it and doesn't have a lot of moisture.
I've never heard of, look, the bag's open, but or the bag's sealed mattering. Like, I don't think that matters in the value. It just won't.
Yeah.
Because anyone you sell it to is going to ask you questions that you can't answer while it's still in the bag.
And as soon as you ship that thing to another FFL, they're going to open it and look at it.
Yep, immediately. Because that's what we have to do as dealers. We can't go, well, the serial number's on the box. You've got to verify, especially with an old gun. It might have been put in a different box. You don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is question number 8. Dylan says, Misha and Jay, what are the oldest guns that you guys own or shoot? Love the content, even the aircraft stuff. Think you could talk about the B-47? Thanks, Dylan.
I'm having a hard time finding a B-47 model along with the B-52. If I do, you'll see it. This is kind of one of the older guns that was to hand. This is a Craig Jorgensen. This one is a 1903, but I have a 1897. It's still shootable. These are nice guns. You know, it's up to you. Condition is a lot. I know guns that are 20 years old that I wouldn't trust, and guns that are 100 years old that are fine.
Yeah.
It's really how it's treated, and also the ammo. If you know your ammo is quality.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's about the oldest. 1890s would be about the oldest we've ever probably shot. You know, World War I stuff occasionally. So
I would say I regularly, and by regular I mean not that often because I don't shoot mil-serve bolt actions that often, but the one that is in my regular rotation for that is my K11.
Yeah. You've got an older one, yeah.
The receiver, I think, was made in around 1903, and then it was rechambered.
Because yours was originally,
1913.
what, was yours a 1900 or a 1904?
1900.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So it was a 1900 that was rechambered, and I think 1913 based on the serial, which, you know, Swiss serials are weird, but so yeah, I mean, that's well over a 100-year-old gun, pushing 120 years old, and shoots great. And I don't see any reason not to. It seems perfectly safe. The materials and the parts are good. So yeah, that's my oldest one. Of course, we shoot a lot of Mosins and all that stuff too.
The reason you don't see us shooting a lot of bolt actions on here is our humidity. Every time we say, hey, we're going to bring them out today, it's like 103% humidity.
Right.
And even if you oil them really good, you run the risk, especially like under the wood line of rust.
Right.
And we love our guns too much for that. So,
Right.
Plus, I got a lot of bolt action shooting in the 90s and early 2000s when the guns and ammo were really cheap.
Right.
So I'm kind of still good on it.
That to me is, I mean, I have probably 200 rounds for each of my
me too.
my old bolt actions, but again, a lot of those things are 50 to 70 to 80 cents a round, and unless you're buying Japanese ammo, and then it's like $2.30 or $2.40 a round, but.
And it's just a matter of time and everything else. There's a lot more that goes into maintaining them. So a lot of those guns do kind of slip into either they're there for historical collector, but all of my guns, with maybe the exception of a tiny handful, like my RSC 1917, that is technically still shootable, but all of mine I keep in good working order. In fact, the other day I was selling a gun from a guy's collection, and the slide holdback was worn on a pistol that we were trying to photograph it, and I was telling the wife this would never happen with one of my guns. If I got a gun like this, it would go to the guns. I try to keep them mechanically there because you never know.
Sure.
Yeah, it just bugs me when something is broken or worn.
Right. So that was question number 8.
Yep.
So we're going to take a short break, and we'll move on to the next.
See you in a second. While we were taking a 5-minute break, I grabbed the one we meant to grab a second ago when they were asking about NFA. This is my MP44, which will be in an upcoming video. We just had to do some work to it, and we will talk about it. But yeah.
That, and again, about every free weekend we've had, it's been raining here, so.
Yeah, and I needed to get a part or two for it. A couple of the springs were there, but old.
Alrighty.
All right, moving on.
Dan says, regarding AK muzzle devices, what was the reason for the change from 14mm threads on the AKM to the 24mm threads on the AK-74? I've heard that the change was necessitated by the AK-74 muzzle brake design, but I've also heard that moving the threads to the front sight tower was an ease of manufacture, ease of replacement thing. Thanks.
I think you pretty much answered your question. Yeah, it does work better for that muzzle device. Also, it's a larger, coarser thread, so it's more durable. The 14 mil, there's lots to find. The 24, there's fewer turns, but they're very durable. It's kind of hard to break one. But yeah, it's on the front sight base, so if they get goobered up, pop it off and put another front sight base on. Any armorer can do it in 10 minutes. So, and also it did help with suppressors on guns like the Crinks. It was easier to make those concentric, and if they weren't concentric, you just, again, swap it out. Whereas if it's on a barrel, what do you do?
Yep. All right. Travis says, sorry, I skipped Andrew. Andrew, you're important to me too. Andrew, any word on the Mishaco polymer striker-fired pistol from IWI? Initially, it's supposed to be released already, but now it has an unknown release date.
I think you kind of answered your own question too. IWI, they are infamous in the industry for way announcing stuff and way busting past their deadlines. Also, I got to be honest with you, I know nothing about that pistol because it's not really of interest to me.
Yeah, I mean, just a few skims through headlines and stuff. It doesn't look like that was. Looks like there's some news on it back in 2018. I think the big announcement was late 2017, and then there hasn't been much. It doesn't look
It's
like
just another striker. I mean, it's not like the market's hurting for them.
Yeah.
They probably took a look at the market and went, we can't make any money at this.
Yeah. It's very straight angled pistol grip. It looks nice.
Oh, yeah, they've always had good form factor.
Okay. Travis. Hi, Misha. Big fan of the content. Thank you, Travis. So, 2 questions. 1, do you think the Yugoslavian AK's lack of a chrome barrel was because of cost savings? I've heard you mention that the Zastava had to cut the cost of their rifles before the government would give them a contract. Or was it a lack of availability?
No one knows for sure, but I don't think it's a cost thing because it doesn't really cost more to chrome line. One thing to say, it is more difficult to chrome and maintain good accuracy. So they may have been more concerned with the accuracy. For example, Steyr did not chrome line their STG 58 barrels. They chrome lined their chambers. They did make a tiny number of chrome line bores at the very end in the 70s, but a lot of countries don't necessarily go to chroming.
Were the Polish 1960s weren't chromed either, were they?
Yeah, they were.
Oh, they were? Okay. I wasn't sure. He has a follow-up question. Evidently, your review of the Tommy built G36 ruffled some feathers. Have you seen this? Tommy came after me on Instagram for referring to your review. Do you think you got a lemon?
Tommy came. This is the first I've heard about him being ruffled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are not aware of it.
I knew nothing about it. I don't frankly care because ruffling the feathers of HK people is like a 1 mile an hour breeze. It's such a sensitive community and they get butt hurt so easily if you say the wrong word. That's the only community where you can't just say, hey, this is a factory built gun like you would the Romanian AK. You have to go, this is a contract gun.
Yeah.
What the hell? Yeah. So I don't. I mean, the review was honest. I mean,
right. All we can do is communicate our experience with the rifle or the gun that we have on hand and be honest about it. And so if I mean, I don't think we savaged that thing.
I think, we said it was very reliable and
it didn't work.
And the part, I think just we had a couple of things we didn't like about it.
Right.
So what?
So
it's like getting a test.
Gloss over our opinions on stuff like that.
It's like getting a test back from the teacher and whining you got a B+ instead of an A+.
Right.
You still got a good passing grade. It's just, it is a nearly $3,000 gun.
Yeah.
That was a huge factor. For that kind of money, you expect it to at least be fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really pretty much all that needs to be said about it. We're going to be honest about our experiences, and that's it.
Well, and one of his responses was pretty much, oh, you got the carbine, you got the wrong one, you should get the pistol. Well, if that's the case, don't make carbines, just make pistols.
Right. Matthew says, hey Misha, I'm not sure if you or your viewers are aware, but KVAR is currently selling the original mil-spec SLR 106 black polymer magazines in 5.56. So that was just a public service announcement there.
Yeah, they just got them in a week or two ago.
Also, I have an old Wasser 10 imported in 2001 that I recently picked up. I've had several feeding issues and had a gunsmith check it out. He said that Century Arms really screwed up their conversion. It seems fine now, however. He said that the front trunnion appears to be cast. Is this true? I thought it was forged. If it's cast, should I be wary of it? I only bought it to be a beater. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to give you my email. ozarkbeararms@gmail.com. OZARKBEARARMS@gmail. Please contact me because something is not adding up. 1, Wassers weren't imported until 2003. 2, no, Romania never did cast front trunnions. And 3, there's no conversion that Century did. All they did was open up the magwell from single to double stack. They didn't touch the trunnion, they didn't touch the bolt. So I am very interested to talk with you more about what exactly you have, because the facts just aren't adding up.
Yeah. Matthew again. Hey again, I forgot to ask in my last post. Last question. That's cool, Matthew. Post as many as you want to. I have an SLR 106.
Eight's the record so far.
Yes, I have an SLR 106 pistol that I bought used. I noticed that the ejector is not flat like my 7.62 by 39 AKs. Is this normal? The gun shoots well and has no issues. Is this to accommodate the 5.56 cartridge, or did it get deformed somewhere along the way? Thanks again.
No, that's just how AK ejectors are. And with those stamped ejectors like that, what they'll do at the factory, if they put one on and it's not quite hitting right, if it's too low, too high, they do the extremely complicated and technical way of fixing it by basically taking a pair of pliers and bending it up or down. That's the AK design for you. Yeah. So it's possible that's how they got it to feed right. But yeah, a lot of them aren't perfectly straight. That's normal. No worries. And like you said, it's working fine. So if it's working, it's doing its job.
Yep. Joe, hello. Is there any difference?
Hello, Joe.
Is there any difference between bring back Russian TT-33s and bring back Chinese Type 54s, and do you feel like one would be more desirable than the other? Also, any word on if any JDI 553 LBs were imported? I would really like to get one, but I might finally break down and get a 550. Finally, what are your guys' favorite regional food? Thank you so much for taking questions and putting out top quality content. Thanks, Joe.
All right, Joe. First off, just because it's in my hand, yeah, here is a 553 LB. What JDI typically does with the 553s, you order them. He has a sheet you fill out, and then he sends it to Swiss Arms, Newhausen, and they build it to your specs. Now, he did import on his own some limited edition heavy metals, flat dark earths, and so on. I agree with you. The LBs are badass. It's probably my favorite look. You can get it as a single piece like this here. This is what is essentially a 13.6, 13.7 inch barrel. You can also get it with a two-piece, which is an 11.9 plus a removable flash hider, which gets it back to about 13.5. So honestly, I like the single piece for being kind of the original, but I really like the two-piece for flexibility, and the Swiss military agrees because their newer guns they're ordering are the two-piece. So yes, JDI still is doing these. Let's see, what was,
the next thing is, he asked about the difference between the TT-33s and Type 54s.
I would say Russians are still worth more because, one, we got a bunch of import Chinese Tokarevs in the 80s. Yeah, they had added safeties, but some of them were military guns. There haven't been a large number of Russian imports, and there's just that mystique. Most of your Russian guns are going to be World War II era, which is neat.
Yep.
And yeah, mostly just because they're Russian. So I'd say if you have a choice, definitely go Russian, unless it's like a condition thing. If you can get an excellent condition non-import Chinese or a fair condition non-import Russian, then you might go Chinese. But
is there any like mechanical differences or anything between
very few? I mean, there are some tiny differences. Trying to think. For example, the Chinese has a thicker, larger trigger guard by a little bit, and of course the grips have different symbols in them. But
gotcha.
And there are more than one of the Chinese, so you know.
Yeah. And then the final question on that was, what are your favorite regional foods?
I'll let you go first on that.
The thing that the very first thing that I noticed whenever we moved to this area with my family very many years ago at this point was the Ozark's Italian thing. There is a contingent of Italian.
I like how you use the word contingent.
That are. So there's a lot of, Italian restaurants by way of Ozark cooking from, 100 years back. So the popular thing is spaghetti and fried chicken. That's probably my favorite, very, very regional specific thing here that I like. So Anything that pops into your mind? You're more from this area than I am, so.
We just ate. You know, I have to say, I'm going to call it that the restaurant we like, the Tuscan Trotter.
Yes.
It's definitely regional because they even source all their meat and stuff from here.
Yep.
But it's like not just Southern cuisine, but Ozark mountain cuisine.
Right.
But made by a French chef with a stick up his butt. So it's really interesting and good.
Yeah.
Growing up, I'll also say things I liked. It's hard to beat like fresh caught fish out of a stream. Perch were always my favorite, but crappie's very good too.
Crappie's good.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, fresh fish, especially in the summer like right now, hits the spot.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's almost generic Southern food here. Mostly is kind of our regional.
Yeah, well, we have the mountains, which have a little bit of their own flair, but nothing like Louisiana where you get the Creole Cajun.
Right.
That's good stuff.
Yep. Alrighty, Daryl. Do you think Classic had their last batch of SKS rifles overpriced? I love Cosmoline milsurps, but almost $500 after hand-selected shipping. Am I just at their mercy? Do you think they are worth it? Thanks for the great videos. Thanks, Daryl.
I definitely think so. I mean, most all the SKSs I've posted online bring minimum 400 now. I mean, with AKs, minimum 700. That's kind of where it's at, especially if the condition's fair. You know, now if they're rustier stuff, no, I wouldn't. I never buy rusty stuff anyway. But, I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah. They've gone up. Yeah, I mean, I think the days of $250 SKSs are gone at this point, unless they're just...
They're too popular and they're not importing them like they used to.
Sure. All right. Well, we're going to take one more quick break and be right back.
Alrighty, guys. See you in a second. For you, anyway. For us, it might be a few. Alrighty, guys. We're back with the home stretch. You guys are really good. We like it when we have a good number of questions to answer. And this video kind of flows well because most of them are AK based.
Alrighty.
All right.
James says, hi guys, I could use some clarification on the Yugo AKs that were imported through Mitchell Arms back in the late 80s and early 90s. First, how many pre-1989 Mitchell Arms Yugo AK-47s were imported and how many were imported post-ban? I have a Mitchell Arms Yugo AK-47 that has the electro-penciled M90 crudely etched on the receiver. Were these altered M90 models caught in customs and remarked in customs, or were they already remarked before being imported? Were all of these electro-penciled M90 models imported with the thumbnail stocks? Were the wood furniture conversion parts Yugo mil-spec wood furniture? And one last question regarding the Mitchell imports, pertaining to the 30-round steel mags that were imported with the Mitchell AKs. How can you know if it's a true Mitchell Arms imported magazine? Are these real steel Yugo mags with electro-pencil markings on them? Love your channel and all of the knowledge you share with everyone. By the way, Jay, is Misha aware that you often pan over to film the cats instead of Misha while he's doing his firearms reviews? Whenever I see this, I'm like, what the fuck, Jay? LOL.
Are you aware that Jay isn't always behind the camera?
Yes. So actually, usually when we're doing the tabletop reviews here, it's usually one of our very many volunteer camera people. If it's a range day review, it's me, and of course if it's one that I'm doing, it's me. So yeah, it's often that is not me, but not only is he aware of it, but actively has encouraged it. It's kind of been a signature thing for us.
Yeah, people like it. If we don't put cats in videos, it's kind of just something to throw in there, you know, while I'm talking. All right, I'm going to say this on the Yugo numbers. I'm not even going to try to recite them off memory. There's a great, often copied list. Go to Google, type in import numbers, Mitchell Yugo AKs. You'll find it posted and reposted on 100 different websites. So and they even do breakdowns of calibers and stuff. Yes, most of the M90s, all of them really were cotton customs guns because right after the 89 ban, Yugoslavia got into a civil war. And so, yeah, imports were pretty quickly gone from there in the early 90s.
Yep.
And as far as the mags you got with yours being original Yugo or not, I don't know. You look at your mags. They definitely did import original mags, but I don't know if the ones you got. As far as the wood furniture being mil-spec, well, no, because it's a thumbhole stock. And yes, all the M90s had thumbhole stocks because the 89 import ban didn't allow pistol grips anymore. So they threw those thumbhole stocks. My favorite of the M90s are the underfolders, where they fold the stock up, they kind of lightly pin or weld it closed, and then they stick a thumbhole stock behind it. I love that. I'd almost keep one in that configuration because it's so absurd.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were just barely lightly put on because they knew what people were going to do.
So the question around the magazines specifically was, is there any way to know that it's a Mitchell Arms import magazine? Because
from Mitchell, I don't.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't say anywhere.
Don't
right?
think. I mean, how do you know something's a KFS import Chinese mag? I mean, those are a little easier because they usually put the chrome followers. But even then, all you know it's a Polytech. You don't know it's a KFS import.
Yeah.
In the end, does it matter?
Yeah. So they didn't do any kind of import marks or anything on that.
I don't think so.
Okay. Gregory says, do you have /shoot miniguns chambered in 22 LR? I notice you haven't posted many videos featuring them. Also, which guns do you enjoy shooting the most?
Not really, because my guns are mostly military, and there aren't many military 22s. And 22s tend to be not 100% reliable, especially if you buy the real cheap, affordable ammo. But if you buy the good ammo, you're these days approaching the price of 223 or something else, or 9mm.
9mm.
So we often just shoot 9mm. It's more reliable and not much more expensive. Yep. Jay does have a number of 22s.
Yeah, I shoot quite a few 22s. I've started doing some one-off or some kind of offshoot videos where I'm covering some less military-focused guns and more commercial-focused guns. So you'll probably see some 22s from me in the future on that. I have a couple that I'm thinking about doing. So those will probably be more stuff that I do more than Misha, just because that's kind of outside of...
And we did do the Armalite AR-7 survival rifle.
We've done multiple times.
Yep.
So you can tell that's one of the few 22s you have, because we've done lots of videos on it.
It's military, yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I like 22s. I like shooting them. They're fun.
That STG 4422, we did a couple of videos. That's a cool one. Yeah. I like that one a lot.
You've got a real one, so...
Well, yeah.
All right, Clark says, any tips you can share on shopping for a Century Import UK surplus L1A1 SLR? Seems that searching anything including the word Century and L1A1 or FAL result in disaster.
Well, Kyle, I think you should look at the FAL files, because that's where most of the legit ones pop up, and those are one of the few times an import mark is your friend. If someone's telling you, hey, this is one of the police guns and it doesn't have that import mark on the barrel, it's not. Or someone's changed the barrel and you've lost your way to point to any ATF officer saying, hey, this is legal. Otherwise, then, chances are you still wouldn't get into trouble unless you're doing other things. But that's one of the few times when that import mark. So look for it on the barrel. I don't know how people might list one on Gunbroker, because, people list things differently, and some people might not even know what they have. But there's only a few hundred in the U.S.
Even filtering it would have to be a Gunbroker search. I'm not sure about other...
Yeah.
But you can filter those by, specific keywords and then filter them down by category.
I know. Maybe try adding BSA, because it seems like most of those... all of them I've ever seen were BSA, marked receivers. And I think that's because Enfield was the Rural Small Arms Factory in Enfield was government-owned, whereas BSA was private. So I don't know if the government will let Enfield sell guns... So I think that's why most of them are BSA. So you might throw BSA in there. That might help.
There you go.
And the ones I've seen have all been like 60, 61, 62 dated, so early 60s.
Yeah.
But you can usually just, you might just have to kind of go by pictures. But try the FAL files. They tend to pop up there a couple of times a year.
Clark again says, in that video on the Century L1A1, you also mentioned gray guns coming in from Canada. Are there any particularly noteworthy or interesting examples of such gray guns that can be found in the U.S.?
There's some VZ52s that kind of came across the border that are kind of interesting. There are a handful of Galils. There are some C1A1s and L1A1s that came across the border. Of course, this is the kind of stuff you should and which probably people do. Swiss guns. There's probably a few PE90s because no one knows where the early PE90s, the handful in the USA, came from. There's no import mark, so there's speculation those might have come down from Canada. But the thing is, it's a great gun. So if someone's has half a brain, they're not really waving it around. It's not illegal because no one's ever made a ruling on it. So it's not legal either. It's
great.
If you have one, just enjoy it and don't whip it out every time you have a company come over. It's my advice.
That's good advice for life in general. Don't whip it out anytime company's over.
Unless you're into that lifestyle.
Right.
We don't judge.
Blake says, "What's up, Jay and Misha?" What's up, Blake? I was bitten by the AK bug a few years ago, and now I have about 20 and am much poorer. You should probably get a spray for that. What are your thoughts on the resale value of parts kits built AKs? For instance, a reputably built Romy MD63 will run around $1,000, whereas a used Wasser can be had for about $500. Would you more highly value a factory-made import over a more polished parts kit equivalent on a good U.S. receiver, or vice versa? I've always thought it would be a good idea for builders to offer certificates of authenticity in the event the owner ever wants to sell. Thanks.
I definitely value imports as a general rule, but a lot of times that's not an option. Polish guns is a great example. Russian guns is another great example. So that's why I have East German, a third example. So in that case, I have nothing against kit guns. I own several, but if, for example, you mentioned the Wasser or a PM63. My ideal would be one of the Wasser 1063s, which were essentially Cougar-built kit guns. So that's the best to me because you have all the military markings, the triangle on the trunnion, a military date code, and it's on a Romanian semi-receiver. Yes, I know, no dimples, get over it, but you get an original Romanian barrel. That's one thing that bugs me about most kit guns. They have US barrels, and that really hurts it for me. Now, thankfully, Romanian virgin and Polish virgin barrels are coming in, which is good, but I'd still rather have the original barrel that came with the gun if possible.
Right. Yep. For sure, 100% imports feel like they tend to hold their...
Oh, and certificate he asked about. They kind of do. That's what the maker's mark on the receiver's for. I mean, the certificates get lost, but that's why makers have to mark their guns, so you know who did it, who to blame.
James says, "Hey guys, any idea how many Russian Molot Vepr FM, RPK 4733s, and RPK 7433s were imported into the U.S. before the sanctions took place? Thanks."
No, I mean, they're bearing pretty tight-lipped, but it wasn't many. Low-end 20, high-end maybe 100. And again, here's the thing. They might have imported 200 of the sporter guns, but how many parts do they have to convert them? How many bipods? How many folding stock assemblies? They may have only imported 50 of those.
Yeah.
And they find another 50 somewhere else from, say, Bulgaria later, they might be able to build them up. But a lot of times that's the limiting factor with imports. It's not the guns themselves, it's the parts to put them in reasonable condition. I mean, for example, this Wasser here, which is, again, a modern one, when it came in, of course, it had a thumbhole stock and a muzzle nut. So imagine if we couldn't get slant brakes or folding stocks. You might have the gun, but no way to put it in this configuration. So kind of the same thing.
Yep. So that's it on Patreon questions for June.
Awesome. About the right length, because we just had lunch, so this gave us plenty of time to digest. Now we actually have to get back to real work.
Right.
Unless you guys just want to stay with us. No, we really do greatly appreciate it. And like I said at the beginning, just $1, and you know, any donations help a lot. And we're not making money at this. We actually lose money every month. But trust me, we went from, without Patreon, we probably couldn't do this channel, because we went from, you know, it costing several hundred a month to now we're kind of both splitting it. You guys are paying about half of our operating costs, which means we can stomach the other parts. So that's why we're doing it. Plus, you guys asked us quite incessantly a year or two back to do Patreon.
Yeah, that was the main thing, is people were asking us all the time, like, if there was a way that they could send us money for some reason. And so we did it.
Bezos.
And we really do appreciate all the support, the comments, the likes, sharing the videos. Even with surly gun manufacturers, that's fine.
And I want to about that, Tom. I want to say that that gun came from Atlantic, who's the distributor, and absolutely no flack from them at all on it. In fact, they said they appreciated the feedback.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. We do this out of love. We're not here to be critical, because we really like guns. And for example, the Kalashnikov USA KR9. That's a gun that now both of us own.
Yeah.
Early guns had that little cracking of the dust cover problem. People told Kalashnikov USA, they fixed it very quickly.
Yeah. PSA. I mean, that PSA. What is AK9?
What is it called? It's
AKV or something.
AKS9 or I don't know.
Anyway, the 9mm PSA AK.
Yeah.
I mean, Military Arms Channel did a video on that, and it
was pretty savage.
It did not work. It just straight up didn't work. And in the improvements that they made as a result of that feedback, it led to improvements in the gun. So, I'm not here to. Neither of us are here just here to, rake things over the coals. Except maybe some American-made or some imported AKs that are of poor construction. But
if they're dangerous,
we're trying to give people. These are just opinions.
I want to also be clear. We're not professional reviewers. We're not doing this for this is just fun. We're just two guys who like to go shooting, and we throw the camera in the car, and you come along with us.
And we're in a position to where, with your shop and other things, that we get our hands on things that people don't see necessarily every day or have interest in or questions about. So it gives people a chance to kind of live vicariously through that and get information.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the real big gun channels, even if their content's great, they kind of hit the standard almost tropes when it comes to releases. This is the new Remington pistol. This is the new Ruger rifle. And that's great, but how many people do you see talking about the JDI guns? Or, even the Wasser. You see a lot of people talking, but it's kind of the same old, same old. We try to bring the weird, obscure stuff because that's what we honestly like ourselves, because after a while you kind of get tired of more striker-fired pistols or more pump-action shotguns.
Or AR-15s.
Or AR-15s. As much as I like them, there's only so many Colts I can talk about.
Right.
It's kind of why AKs are nice. There's so many flavors.
Right. Yeah. So, anyway.
Anywho.
Well on that, but...
Yep. Alrighty, guys. Well, we greatly appreciate it. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And, of course, if you would like to be a member, please check out the link to our Patreon page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, just $1 a month minimum. Allows you to ask as many questions as you want. And we do these Q&As once every couple of months.
Yeah, when we get time. It's every 2 or 3 months, especially when there's interest built up. We usually wait till there's a couple of dozen questions.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right, guys, feel free to comment below, and we will reply as quick as we can.
Yep. Yeah, we usually stick around on the latest video for at least, a week or so and answer questions and comments as they come through.
Yep.
So, yeah. Well, hope everybody has a great week at this point by the time we post this video.
Yep.
And
coming up on the 4th. And we do have something kind of little special as always planned for the 4th, so look forward to that.
Yep, we've got lots of interesting lists and other type of videos coming down the pipe that I think people will enjoy. So, yeah.
Alrighty. This is Misha.
And this is Jay.
And we will catch you very soon next time.
See ya. Now I'm going to run across the kitchen and turn the camera on.
Or trip on a cat.